Welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Audrey Tang.
And I'm Judith Crozier.
And this is the show where we talk about all things mental health and well-being without the quick fixes, without the need to be perfect, just real advice and tools to change. Now, we've got a very special show for you today because we welcome Adrian D Brown. We've recently had National Poetry Day in the UK and he is a poet, and we're going to be learning from him not just about his journey into poetry, but how we can use poetry ourselves, how we can use it to express ourselves, how poetry and words sometimes written on a page can help us say things when we can't voice them.
Yeah.
And that's what today's going to be about. So let's just start with a little discussion about poetry. Do you write poetry? Have you written poetry, Jude?
No.
No, fair enough. No, absolutely.
I haven't. And I never really enjoyed poetry.
Interesting.
And I started to when I was doing my teacher training and we did the English part of my degree. I learned to really love it. You do that thing at school where you dissect it all.
Yeah.
And that made me learn to love it because I realised what poetry is and what it isn't as well. To me, it's just a very free way of writing. Just lets people just express themselves so freely, and that's what I love about it.
I know I used to write poetry when I was little. It was either primary school or just starting secondary school.
Yeah. And
the reason I remember that is because it must have been English teacher. So yes, it must have been in early secondary school.
Right.
Said to my parents one parents' evening that she wanted me to go to Oxford to read English.
Wow.
And that stayed with me. I mean, I didn't either of the two. And I really went down the scientific route. And now the books that I've written are non-fiction. They're not creative. They're not anything like that. And I would love, and I don't have them anymore, to have actually kept some of my old books to look at them and see what I'd written.
What your teacher saw.
And why I'd stopped writing. Those are the two things that I'm really quite curious about. I know why I stopped writing, though. I used to write poems for my starter husband. This is a good reason as to why he's a starter husband. And he actually made fun of me. He found them over-sentimental and he didn't like them. And I stopped after that.
Oh my goodness! So and you've never started
never
again?
Written again. Well, I've written some. Well, I've written the test the trend exercise.
Okay.
And I've written when we've done workshops.
Yes.
But there's clearly something personal about it, and I find it really interesting. I'm only reflecting on it now to think that I didn't go back to writing anything creative.
Well, I was thinking that because you and I had a conversation where I said, your writing's great, and you said yes, but I don't write anything creative, and you kind of closed it down.
Yeah.
Now I know why.
Yeah.
That's really
isn't that?
Yeah,
okay.
Interesting. But also, I'm hoping then that this
unlocks,
our guest,
yes,
exactly, unlocks and maybe makes you want to start writing again.
Well, let's meet him.
Yeah.
Well, we have Adrian D Brown joining us in the studio, and it's very exciting because recently, well, not that recently, it was March, it was National Poetry Day, and that's a wonderful time to start thinking about how poetry can really work for us. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us. And Adrian, I think, please start by telling us about your journey into poetry and your personal and professional experience to bring you here.
Well, thank you for having me. My journey into poetry started in 2014. I was recovering from a stroke in Northampton, and I started writing as a way of trying to control my thoughts.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. That's what a lot of people say, actually. It's a way of expressing, and it's a way of kind of feeling or making sense of feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I know that there's a lot more that goes behind that. Do you mind sharing some of your own personal journey?
No, absolutely not. People ask me a lot what the stroke was like. What did it feel like? And I've found the best way I can describe it, if you go on a waltzer 10 times back to back, You get off and somebody hands you an A4 pad and says, write down everything you remember about your first holiday.
Right.
It's kind of, there are memories there. But as we get older, we don't know what are memories and what are stories we were told as children.
Wow.
And so that's what it was. There were memories there, but they weren't in the right order. And so, yeah, so I came up with that. Because of the nature of my treatment, I started off in John Ratcliffe, then I was moved to Northampton. The transition to Northampton was very difficult.
Oh, gosh. Is that because of the difficulty in forming the memories, or...?
The difficulty in the transition was I'd spent about a month in the Ratcliffe because I used to work in Bicester.
Right.
So I was taken to the Ratcliffe from work. Then when I was moved from the Ratcliffe to Northampton, the first thing I saw when they took me onto the ward were a trolley of tippy cups and adult-sized Pampers.
Oh, no.
So my initial thought was, they've moved me because this is about to get worse.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
you would
course.
think that, wouldn't you?
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
awful.
That's quite a statement on the system
Yes.
there, rather more than anything else.
Yeah, it is.
But of course, a stroke is not the only thing that you've had to battle with or deal with, is there? There's other things in your life that you faced.
Absolutely. After the stroke, there was depression, which led to alcoholism, and then the journey out of that.
Yes.
I'm 30 months sober now.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And so that journey has figured heavily in my poetry.
Yes, which is what we want to talk about as
Yes.
well, because I think poetry writing is so important for people, and there will be people out there who want to start trying to write poetry as well, but maybe don't know where to start. So yes, let's
Absolutely.
jump into it.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you for sharing. It is inspirational, and we wanted to know how you find inspiration, to know what to write about in everyday life.
I write from experience or people I've known, and because we all go on a journey, and this is one of the strange things. People now say, "Oh, them years drinking, they must have been the worst in your life," but they weren't. Because I met some of the funniest, most interesting people that I've ever met. And they've all fed this reservoir of knowledge that I have that now comes into my poetry.
I love that way of looking at life,
Yes,
you know.
yeah,
I
me too.
really do, because you're right, absolutely right. The assumption is, oh, that thing that happened to you was so terrible. And the way that you have found those inspirations and the joy within that, I know, of course, it must have been a very difficult time as well, but that's very, very powerful.
It is, because I can't write gushing poetry with swooning lovers, and I don't have that in me. What I can write is teenagers sitting on a bench sharing chips waiting for the last bus home.
Oh, yes.
I love it. Just
Yes.
observational writing.
I love
really
it.
like
Absolutely.
that. Yeah,
I love it.
because we can all relate to that as well. And I love the way that you, as you said, you put such a positive spin on what would have been a very difficult time.
Yeah, destructive for some people.
Yeah, but you've taken the really good parts from it and been able to put that into your writing. I love that. So how do you know if you have an idea, how do you know when that's worth then turning that into a poem?
My poetry tends to be quite sporadic. I'll get an idea, and within 5 minutes, the skeleton of it is on a page.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really glad you've said that, because I choreograph dancers. I teach a dance class. And I'm like you. My best dancers are the ones that I've just had the idea for. It's really inspirational and I create it. But then the routine dancers are the ones where I go, oh, I've got to do one for this week, so here we go. And I'm really happy you said that, because otherwise I go around thinking, are people just inspired all the time? And not everyone is.
No, because as well as kind of giving these things thoughts, you've also got everything else going on. The housework needs doing, the shopping needs doing. But then see, this is where the nature of my poetry comes through nice. We have a food bank in Kettering.
Yeah.
And I wrote a poem called Food Bank, and there was a man that was kind of shuffling round the entrance, and it was almost like he didn't want anybody to see him going into the food bank. Because as men, once we stop providing, there is a big chunk of our lives that feels like it is missing.
I can understand that from an intellectual point of view. I can't feel how that must feel, but I understand that some men do feel like that.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
So we've had people who've talked about men's mental health, and financial provision is one of the key things that can cause mental health issues. And you're going to now recite a poem called Homeless to us. Could you tell us a little bit about this poem and how it came about?
Yeah, a lot of my poetry involves my daughter. For a large part of her life, well, the bit before she got to being a teenager, really, she was like my best friend. We went everywhere together. We had such wonderful adventures. And one of our adventures was going to London Christmas shopping. It was something we did every year. When she was about 5, we came out of Oxford Street tube station, and there was a guy laying on the path, covered in a blanket, with a takeaway cup in his hand. And Susie wasn't the subtlest children. She stopped dead in her tracks, pointed at the man, and said, "Dad, what's that?" We then went from Regent Street to Piccadilly, with Susie asking me every question that she could possibly imagine that we did as part of our everyday lives. And she just didn't have any comprehension that people could be alive that didn't have that. Simple things like programmes we watched on the telly. Where do you go for a shower?
Yeah.
She asked, does the homeless man have a holiday? And it was just heartbreaking.
Yes, and so innocent as well. And I think that's really beautiful. And you have captured this in your poem. We are going to hear Adrian D Brown recite Homeless.
Homeless man. Where does he have dinner? Watch Casualty on TV? Go to the toilet, have a shower, wash his clothes? Where does he get a birthday card if he doesn't have an address? Where can his mum or dad call him if he doesn't have a phone? Does he get cold in winter? Is it scary for him at night? Dad, is there a homeless people home with a little Christmas tree where other homeless men go? What is homeless man's name? Is homeless just in London? Can homeless man come with us for dinner? Can we take homeless man home? Was homeless man naughty? Did he do something wrong? Why does no one help him? Grown-ups fix things when they go wrong. Do you always be homeless man? Or does it come to an end? Can he spend the day with us? Can we be his friends? Dad, you always answer my questions. Now you have nothing to say. You rushed me past the homeless man like you were ashamed.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters, where we've got the lovely Adrian D Brown in the studio with us, and we're talking about poetry, and it's so lovely. So if you haven't heard Homeless, please go back and have a listen to that. It was really, really lovely. So you're going back to your poetry and other people's. Do you think poems are different, whether they're spoken aloud or whether they're read on the page? And how does performing poetry influence what you write?
Performing and writing are completely different experiences. I'm dyslexic, so for many, many years I wrote, but I was ashamed to show it to anybody else. So it was only when I met a guy called Carl Peach, and we went to a couple of open mic things together. Something as well that was awkward when I was first going to open mics, I was still drinking. So a lot of what I did wasn't coming through clear. And it's only as time's gone on and confidence has built that I feel able to.
Gosh, I think that's so insightful, because you're right, they are two different skills.
Yes.
But to have that experience and then I guess to build it up, and then what happened when, do you mind me asking, when you became sober, was it different then performing?
Yes, it was more enjoyable because I remembered more of it. I could look at my work and be self-critical.
Right.
Whereas when you're performing something and you're not altogether in the right place, it tends to be other people criticise and you then get defensive.
Right.
Yes, that's a good point.
Really good point, actually. I wouldn't have thought about it. I suppose you just had more clarity about all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, really good point. And then when you're performing or reading your poetry, or if people read your poetry, what do you want readers or listeners to feel?
Because so much of my poetry is about street things and everyday life things, the nicest thing is for people to be able to relate. And an example of that, as I mentioned, I didn't initially think my poetry was poetry because it didn't swoon and duck and dive, but I wrote a poem about my experiences of bullying. And then in 2016, I was invited to read at Kettering Library. So I read my poem about bullying, which is called Not the Best of Days. And after the performance, a guy came up to me and he had this little lad, Isaac, about 10 years old. And he had this wonderful thick mop of dark curly hair and these thick glasses. And he said, "What you have just read is my everyday life."
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
And at that point I thought, yes, I'm a poet because my words can touch hearts.
Yes.
Very powerful.
But actually, when you were reading Homeless, we were both, you painted such a vivid picture, and the story behind it is beautiful. But even without that, you could see those questions forming and the innocence with which they're asked. It was just so moving.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah,
thank you.
Really beautiful. Now, getting to the technical side of writing, are there any habits or routines that you have that support your writing practice?
More so with my novel writing than poetry. As I said, my poetry tends to be sporadic. I get an idea within 5 minutes. The idea is there. It's on paper. Now, I will come back to it. I will change little bits. I've just changed a word in one of the ones that I've read for you today. I've changed the word of that to make it flow better while I was waiting for you.
Brilliant. That's really, and actually, again, that's really nice because some artists feel that once it's done, it cannot be touched. You obviously have a much more flexible approach to it.
Absolutely, because it's completely arrogant to imagine that, okay, I've done that, that's there for posterity, it never ever needs to be touched. Poetry evolves. As you get older, your point of view changes. So therefore, something I've written 10 years ago, it's now different.
Yeah, and it comes with the experience of life and maturity and perspective. That is beautiful. Now, this one, the novel writing is fantastic. Whether with poetry or whether with novels, how do you experiment with different forms, or do you experiment with different forms of writing without losing your voice? You know how people kind of, oh, I like that, I might try it in this style, but actually, this is me. How do you do that?
I went to a writing seminar 5 or 6 years ago, and there was a lady there from the Midwest of America, and she said her access to books when she was young wasn't that good. So when she sat down to write her first book, she wrote the story that she wanted to read.
Oh, wow.
And I follow that. There are 1,000 different types of advice. You need to look at yourself and you need to say to yourself, who am I? What do I want to write about?
So simple, so precise. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that, and that's such a good baseline to start from. Then you can add and learn and do all the extras, but it is about you and your authentic self, and that's one of the quickest ways I think to find your voice. Love that. Who am I? And what do I want to write about? Absolutely beautiful. Now, the next poem you're going to perform for us is a poem called Stroke. Now, this must be about your own experiences. Could you tell us a little bit about the poem, please?
Well, much as the first one, Homeless, was about an experience with my daughter, when it got to Stroke, it was my daughter coming to visit me in Northampton. When my left side was paralysed, I couldn't speak, and you kind of don't know how it's going to go. One stroke can lead to another. And to see her there, she was 17, in the middle of college, and to watch her so upset, and all I could do was jot down on an A4 pad, it's going to be all right.
Oh, gosh.
So Stroke is how I was from my daughter's point of view.
Oh. Wow. We are going to listen to Adrian D Brown performing Stroke.
Dad used to tell us jokes. Now words get stuck in his throat. Dad used to read lots of books. Now words jump round the page. He's still Dad. It's there behind his eyes. Dad doesn't remember birthdays. Walks past old friends in the street. Cries for no reason. Put shoes on the wrong feet. He's still Dad, somewhere behind his eyes. Dad's from a generation that worked to provide. Their work ethic is what kept them alive. They'd sooner be dead than supported by their wife. Now he's fighting to make sense of his life. He's still Dad, behind brave, bewildered eyes. I can't understand what it's like inside his head. I'm just glad my dad isn't dead. If you didn't know him before Stroke took his spark away, you won't understand a single word I say. Dad will always be my dad. I'd love him anyway. There was 4 beds on my ward, and I was the luckiest one out of all of us. There was a guy in a bed dead opposite me, I suppose maybe my age, maybe a little bit younger, and his wife used to come in every day. She used to feed him, and I thought, when you're in your 20s or your 30s and you fall in love with somebody and you commit your life to them, you don't expect in 10 years' time you're going to be feeding them and doing the most fundamental personal things for them. That's, you know, we love people, but that's really not what we sign up for. And so I needed to kind of make sense of all this. So I focused on writing Sorry Was Never Enough. And it gave me that level where I could think, all right, I can't do this, I can't do that, but I can do this, so I'll focus on this.
What would you say might be a common misconception about the writing of poetry that you'd like to correct?
That you've got to be really, really well educated to write good poetry.
That's a great message.
Brilliant one, because poetry can feel elitist because they talk about Keats and Byron and all of these very old-fashioned poets.
Yeah,
you're right. You're so right.
I think it will put a lot of people off, even starting if they think they've already got that barrier up, but that they've put up themselves maybe or been told in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in open mic nights and poetry events where you'll get a guy or a lady will get up and they'll read a poem that got these words in that are as long as your hand. And there's probably 3 or 4 people in a 60 or 70 audience that are going to know what that means. Yeah. Whereas a lot of the work I do now is with youngsters that are kind of on the cusp of getting into trouble. And I say to them, that thing that's making you so angry, write it down. Because once you've expressed it, it's there, you can see it, it's not internalised.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah. So then, if somebody wanted to start writing poetry, is that where you can kind of advise them how to begin, write about what they feel, or what would you say is the best step? First step?
Write about what you know.
Yeah. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Write about your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good advice.
It's true, because why try and make things up when actually what has happened to you in your own voice, your own lived experience is probably just as, if not more, interesting.
Well, exactly. I mean, the 2 poems that you've read so far, incredible, and they're both absolutely your complete experience.
Yes.
So,
now,
case in point.
I know this question, you've kind of half answered it, but more on a broader scale, how do you know when a poem is finished? As in, when you can put your pen down and say, that's the end of the story I'm telling, not necessarily, I'm not going to go back and re-look at it, but what kind of gives you that feeling of, yep, okay, that's done? Or would you go back and add verses to something?
Generally speaking, your mind will tell you. When you finish telling the story of what you're writing, that's when it's finished.
Yes. Yeah.
And you, depending on what you write and how you write, as I've said, my poems tend to be short. They've got a story to tell.
Yeah.
Once I've told that story, there's no need for embellishment.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I wish people would talk that way.
Yeah.
You know, there was somebody who mentioned this to me, that the longer the sentence, this is a woman who taught linguistics actually, the longer the sentence, the politer it's become. So if you say, could you pass me the pen? That's one thing. Sorry, could I bother you? Could I ask for you for the pen? Would you mind if I bothered you ask you for the pen? or pen? You know, it's really true. And I think sometimes you don't need the embellishment. You just need to come to the end.
Yeah.
That's so important. I mean, I could listen to your poetry all day. Honestly, it's just beautiful. Where can we learn more about you?
I'm not a very kind of technical type of person. I don't do lots of social media.
That's
I don't know. I do events. I share some of my stuff on Facebook. But yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
That's okay, but if someone wanted to maybe buy your novella or something like that, could they find that?
The novella, yes, that is on Amazon still, I believe. There's going to be a poetry book later this year called No More Hiding. I've got a collection of about 130 poems. I'm going to bring that down to 60, and then that will be a poem for each year of my life.
Oh,
wow.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it is also Adrian's birthday today, so happy birthday from us all here at Mental Health Matters.
Thank you very much.
It's been such a pleasure having you on the show, talking to you and listening to you as well with your poems. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll be back.
I hope so. It's been a pleasure. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Brilliant. We'll go over to Test the Trend. Test the Trend. We are going to challenge you to write a poem. It's going to be a 3-word challenge. So what you're going to do is you're going to listen and you're going to notice one sound around you. So whatever it might be. A clock, it might be breathing, it might be my voice. Write down 3 words that come to mind when you hear it. So here's a pen.
Oh,
Can you? I'm going to make you do this right now. So
okay, I didn't know I was going to do this.
Notice one sound.
All right.
3 words that come to mind when you hear it. And once you've got those 3 words, can you write one more line, and that turns your 3 words into a short poem.
So the 3 words and one more line.
One more line.
Okay, so if I do that.
Yep. And I'm very aware, on a podcast, I will give you my example whilst Judith is thinking about hers, if it doesn't put her off, which it probably will, so sorry. I heard there were 2 things. I was listening when I was doing this exercise. I could hear the clock and I could hear my typing on the keyboard. So my 3 words are actually tick, tick, tap. The clock moves faster than my words are typed.
Love that.
I was pleased with that. And it was so true, because at the time I was sat there trying to think of questions to ask and what to write. It's like,
That's extremely poetic. I love that. You should
go back to it.
No. Keep it exactly as it is, but make it a thing. Publish it or something.
Yeah. What's yours?
Okay. Rumbling, constant distance. This is the background to my Fridays. And it's the traffic noise that we can hear out there.
I love that. But the picture of the background is just beautiful, because we don't often think about the soundscape of our lives.
Yeah.
We think so much about what we can see and what we're doing. Well, there we go. Hopefully that challenge will make you a poet. Give it a go. What a show.
Very, very powerful.
Yeah, and so moving.
Very moving.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful words. And so many of the things that Adrian said, not just in the interview, but also in the poetry, they just sit here. Yeah. And it's wonderful.
And he doesn't shy away from difficult subjects either. And I think that's where the power is, but also the power in helping himself and other people that write poetry to kind of come to terms with whatever's happened in their lives.
Yes, but he also doesn't feel the need to embellish it, because sometimes I know, and I've seen it happen, people write stunning poems and then, I'm not using that word, I need to use a different word because the word needs to be more pretty or more creative, and that can take away the heart and the earthiness, the grounding of where that poem came from.
And the spontaneity as well,
Yeah. So what have you taken away from today?
Maybe I need to find time to write things down more.
Yes.
Because even if, I'm no good at poetry and I've never really written it, just the act of writing things down can really help try and free your mind of stuff. So what about yourself?
Yeah, for me it's his point about be you and write what you know.
Yeah.
So simple.
And going back to what you were saying,
Yeah.
do you think that you're going to actually now do some more creative writing?
I don't know, because actually I found I really enjoy non-fiction writing.
Okay.
So there is that. But I know there's other, I guess I express myself now through dance.
Yeah.
So I have found an outlet.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't need it to be writing.
Yeah, well, that's the
So
good
I think
point.
that's where I kind of sit now. And I'm happy with that. I like the dance. So,
But at least it's something.
But at least it's something. Because
So-
I can imagine, actually, if someone was shut down
Yeah.
and they have no outlet,
Yeah.
that's quite that. You're carrying a lot. Because I know, and my classes will make fun of me. They'll go, you know, there's a lot of this kind of theme going through the classes this week. What are you thinking about? So I know it is expressive.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But if someone doesn't have any outlet, then maybe poetry is a great place to start.
And you can do it with a 3-word sound.
I know, I love that
challenge.
so much.
Brilliant. Well, from us here, the whole team at Mental Health Matters, have a healthy week.
Listen, can you not hear? A voice, quiet, timid. It wants to speak, longs to be heard, silenced for so long. Give it a chance. Words won't just come. They need to be nurtured, given room to grow. Words aren't rain. You don't just get a sudden downpour of conversation. A thirst for words leaves a heart parched, a soul barren. Life should ooze joy, laughter, never-ending tomorrows. Without words, we've become tortured, fibrous husks. Listen, can you not hear? A voice, quiet, timid, lost. That voice is you.